Welcome in, witches. Hey, Nisi. Hey, Missy. Hey, Ash. All right. So I'm excited for today's conversation because this book just feels quite timely, I gotta say. Um, yeah, I know if we've been keeping up with the news and just seeing what is happening right now, just worldwide, both with universities showing solidarity with Palestine and just seeing a new shift happening in the world right now that I can't even find words for. And getting to read this book this month, genuinely, like timing, I don't know how it could have worked out any better. But it just feels really relevant for the time being. So let's go ahead and keep moving for today. All right. So on the agenda today, we're going to do our opening announcements, intros as we usually do, have our book discussion, and then separate from the book discussion, because I know book discussion, group discussion are realistically the same thing. The group discussion is more an opportunity for us just to kind of talk about the world for a second and just get an idea of where we're at, what are we feeling, what are the issues that are close to our heart at the moment. And hey, Maribel. And that's what we'll be doing today. And then after that, we'll have our closing announcements, and that will be our book club. And before we get into introductions, if you guys made it to the end of the book, I don't know who noticed at the very end on page 141, she actually includes a little land acknowledgement statement in here, which I was like, ooh, like how nice, like having a nice little worked out statement there for us. And she also, Sarah Lyons, uses the website native-land.ca. She recommends as well, which is what we always say when we're looking up our land spirits, which I thought was just pretty cool. So moving forward with our land acknowledgement, I wanted to, use the book that we're reading and do that. So we honor and acknowledge the land we stand on. This is occupied territory that was once called Lenapehoking and is home to the Lenape tribe. We acknowledge that this land was stolen by settlers and that the mistreatment of its first people continues to this day. While we live in a world that settlers created, we promise to work on building a better world with the help and leadership of the land's original inhabitants. We honor this land and thank you for the many gifts you give us each day. Thank you for allowing us to fight on with and for you. And I really appreciated that statement in there because sometimes finding the right words to say and getting caught up and finding that perfect ring of a statement, right? We can get lost in what the actual message is. And I just really appreciated her wording it in a very simple way, but right to the point, not sugarcoating anything and just calling it out as it is. So that was our land acknowledgement for today. And if you were curious on the pictures, the picture on the left is what Manhattan would look like if it hadn't been constructed on. All the land and all the forests that would still be here. The picture in the middle is the park right outside of Bronx Witch headquarters. It's Joyce Kilmer Park. And I find it to be such an important piece, like that piece of land has become so important to Bronx Witch. I wanted to include it in here. And then the final picture is a picture of the Lenape people living and just living. And that's what it is. All right, so let's go ahead and get into our introductions. You can see right there at the bottom, name, pronouns, magical path, native land spirits, and what your progress with the book is. And today I want to go alphabetically because I don't want to always go first. So Ash, if you can go right ahead.
Thanks, Derry. Hi, everybody. I'm Ash, pronouns she, her. Magical path, I think like cosmic zodiac, which is kind of what I'm leaning towards if I had to give it a name, and like divination tarot. My native land spirits are the Nacotchtank people and the Piscataway people down here in DC. And book progress, I made it through roughly half of the book. It's really awesome. I do like politics, so this is like fun.
Awesome. Thank you for being here, Ash. All right, and let's go to Maribel.
Hi, everyone. My name is Maribel. My pronouns are she, her. my magical path is I'm an astrology and tarot witch. My native land spirits are Lenape here in New York City in the Bronx. And my book progress, this is the furthest I've gotten with all the books that we've been looking at. So I got a little bit towards like the last like part of it. So like I was like in a page 100 and something already. Um and I felt proud of that. I was like, yes, I pushed through. Because you get so busy, but that's where I'm at.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I'm so happy that like we're making some more progress, right? We're getting those reading goals up. Love that. All right, and I would be next. But before I go, Missy, I don't know if you can hear me because I know you were having issues with your device connection. If you're still here, if you don't mind introducing yourself in the chat, and then whenever that pops up, I can read it that way. Hopefully, you can hear me. And all right, so hi everybody, I'm Noria Landra. My pronouns are she, they. My magical path, I'm a self-dedicated Wiccan, also doing folk practices within that as well. My native land spirits are the Lenape people, and I ended up finishing the book last night actually. And I just always try to make sure I finish the book if I'm the one leading. So I do that as best I can. And let's go on and move on to Nisi.
Hi everyone, I'm Shanice, aka Nisi. My pronouns are she, her. My magical path is I'm a Christian witch. Native land spirits here in Greenville are the Muskogee people. And book progress, I got to the end, so I got to page 136. So right before you read the land statement.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. All right. So it sounds like everybody, yeah, got at least like halfway through the book. And Missy, oh, you're back.
I'm
Perfect.
testing the mic.
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so I can't get the camera on, but the mic I can turn on and off. Hi everyone, this is Missy. Pronouns are she, her. Magical path, hoodoo practitioner, initiated Wiccan, eclectic pagan. I'm also on Lenape land, and I almost finished the book. I got past the land prayer or whatever it was called. Yeah, I actually listened on Audible. So I think I only had like 10 minutes left. So almost done.
Beautiful. Awesome. Yay. Okay. I'm so happy we're all here and I'm glad that we're going to get into this discussion now. So let's get to it. Okay. So for today, I was really thinking about how I wanted this conversation to go because even though this book is like really small and compact, there's like a lot of really good information in here. I don't know for my halfway point people if you got to like the power mapping and when she was describing how we can like identify the allies, identify resources we have available to us, and like identifying the enemies and targets. I don't know about you guys, but I found that section to be so useful and so relevant because I think so often, especially in these huge ism issues, like I like to say, like the racism, homophobia, transphobia, it can feel so hard to find where to even start tackling things from when there's so many policies and like laws and these weird barriers and all these things that make it feel impossible to actually make any progress. So yeah, I just kind of wanted to point that little section out and mention that I personally really enjoyed it. But yes, so anyways, you see the questions up there. We're never limited to the questions that are on display. And after my little share of just me enjoying the power mapping section, I want to open the conversation and let you guys go ahead and take us. Where should we go? Yes, Maribel.
I wanted to respond to what you were sharing because I really did like that too. But I especially liked something that she said like later on in the book in response to that. Because it is so hard, right, to find your place within that activism, like find where to start, what to focus on, or to feel like you're actually doing something. But she says at one point, or I don't know her pronouns, but they say at one point that um, that we should also focus on it as like a part of a whole, like not get so fixated on I wish I could find the section the way she said it, but in summary she says like not get fixated on if I'm doing this right, or if like I'm gonna change everything. Like we should embrace the fact that we're doing that work and what we're doing, and continue to do it because it does make an impact no matter what, you know. And I
Yeah.
feel like it kind of quelled that pressure of like all those overwhelming things because they're so big, and it just made you feel like part of a team, not necessarily the one to do it or fix it or solve it.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember like what that section was. My instinct wants to say, she was saying something like we should embody whatever that thing is that we're trying to change, and not just, right, like hyper fixate on like, okay, let's go sign the petitions, or like let's go vote, and like that's the only thing we're doing, but live in a way that we're almost always doing the work in some capacity. Yeah. Yeah, thanks, Maribel. Yeah, go right ahead.
She says, one of the best techniques I've found in magic is to always see your work as part of a bigger story. In politics, we might say that this is you being guided by an ideology, while in magic, we might call this fitting your work into a paradigm. Whatever you decide to call it, making your mind think this way is going to keep you from feeling like you're fighting random battles and putting out fires all over the place, and will instead make you believe that you are actually working towards something as inevitable as the final chapter of a book. So
Mm,
the way she said it, it's like you don't have to like break yourself apart into all these pieces. Like, and I really like that because it did take the pressure off of me while reading it. Because I right away start to think, oh, how can I do this in my life? How can I, what should I focus on, or what should I do? And um I still feel like I'm still starting out my connection to activism on some level, and trying to figure it out. And when she said that, it made me feel like, oh, it what matters is what I have to contribute and how I can contribute, and that it's part of you know being supportive and showing up for those things that matter, those important like isms,
yeah.
solving those important isms, like you said.
Yeah. And another question for you, I'm wondering how specifically, if you're there yet, has this book inspired you, or like as you've been on your journey of discovering like, oh, like there's this activist part of life, how have you been inspired to like step into that? Like what are you, I don't know, thinking about doing moving forward, or like areas of wanting to learn a little bit more, or even going into doing some action?
Honestly, I'm very preliminary with it. I'm trying to figure that out, but I like I do always feel drawn to the earth part of things, the land part of things, nature and protecting nature, um, and that's something that I've uh, been trying to figure out more and more. More the things that I've done like locally is like my husband and we've been like collecting all the plastic that we consume, and like we've now ordered a box where we're going to put all that plastic to be sent somewhere where we can, where there's guarantee that it's going to be recycled, as
Yeah.
opposed to like putting it in the bags where we think it's being recycled when we know our building is not recycling. So kind of things like that. We went to a paper shredding event on Saturday. I'm not a fan of those things, but it was like me pushing myself, like, but I believe in this, so I have to be there. And I was actually happy that he pushed me to do it because I was there, and I was like, but I do feel connected to this. Like, I do want to do this. So that's why I say it's preliminary, because I have these resistance things with my own self of like putting in more work,
Yeah.
but reading this opens my mind a little more on how I can start making new connections and also appreciate the little things I do in in favor or like in support of those values and the greater good, as they say.
Ooh, okay. Based off what you just shared, Maribel, I want to open that last question on the screen to everybody. Is it a witch's responsibility to be an advocate? Like, is that something we should be doing? Is it not? Should we just, do our candle spells and just be alone and just be in solitary? Or is it our job to like be a voice and be out there? What do you guys think?
I have an opinion, but I feel like I'm gonna be the only chatty Cathy, so I'm gonna let other people speak.
Okay. I'll just go. I think that because I didn't finish the book, but I did really enjoy the fact that in the beginning portion of it, she talked a lot about power, and I think that kind of sent me on a little bit of like, a lot of introspection and reflection, especially because we just had a Scorpio full moon, which is all about power and sensuality and transformation. And then to add to it, right, we're seeing a lot of shifts in like the public psyche. Like I was out in DC the other day and I heard a couple of protests, and I feel like living here, I don't see as much disruption associated with Israel's Palestine as much as I would have expected. But yesterday I saw something and I was like, oh, that's interesting. And later I found out it was because it was the White House Correspondents' Dinner. So a lot of people were flying into the town to like go and just like be in those halls of power, right? And so I think just looking at those protesters and how they were taking advantage of the moment, right? Like that is, in that moment, they're taking their own power, they're speaking up, they're taking action, they're doing advocacy. And I think whether we are actively out there on the streets or if we're just trying to have conversations with our loved ones to get them to understand that compassion and humanity shouldn't look like dropping bombs on babies and children and letting them starve out in ICU units and all of the terrible, terrible, horrifying things that have been happening the past 6 months. I think just by living and existing and breathing, we are advocating for a certain life. We're advocating for a certain principle. And whether a witch is intentional behind that or not, it's happening. But because witchcraft and energy is about attention, that's how we harness change in the most effective capacity. I think that witches should have that as a primary focus, and like they should be advocates for other people because they're probably at a minimum being advocates for themselves, right? And so what do you want for yourself? You want love, you want compassion, you want kindness. And I think that is something that we inherently should be expressing out and giving out to others, whether that's through magical means or not.
Yeah, I love that. That was so well said. Maribel, I know you wanted to chime in.
Oh yeah, because I wanted to piggyback off of what Ash said. I feel like whether it's conscious or unconscious, I think witches are natural advocates for justice of some kind, for progressive thinking of some kind, for the appreciation, the gratitude that we have to have for the world, for connection. And there's a card deck, an oracle deck that I have that I love. It's called the Earth Warriors Oracle deck. If you've ever seen it, I think you guys would all love it. And there's one card, I forget the name of it, that talks about that part of us, our consciousness being raised as workers of spirituality, which is any type of practice where you're working with energy and, like Ash said, intention, naturally progresses to the care of all, because you realize that you're connected to everything. That's what ends up happening, and you're just like, oh shoot, what I do affects somebody else, and what they do affects me. And you grow more appreciative of what exists already, of the presence and stuff. And I feel like that naturally leads you to that advocacy because you have that awareness that people need to be preserved. Things, deserve to exist, like, and that's why, that connection with nature, for example, is so like exemplary for the witch and everything, because it's that awareness of what is, of what's precious, of what is temporary, and that is life. And I think that naturally, even if the intention is there or not present in the moment or maybe later on, I think witches are natural advocates for whatever it is that their witchiness manifests into. So whether it's astrology, tarot, um Wiccan practices, hoodoo practices, there's advocacy, I feel like, in all of it.
Yeah, 100%. And Missy, are you able to reconnect? And while there she goes. Yes.
Sorry, yeah, I can turn the mic on and off. It's the camera that I still haven't figured out. Something about the browser. But hold on, I'm sorry, y'all. My dog is barking. Give me 1 second. Sorry.
Yeah. While Missy's getting her dog, I just wanted to re-point out that I'm thinking, right? Yeah, the land really is like our first connection and our first place where we begin that advocacy work, right? Because so many of like the beginner witchcraft books are all about, yeah, like make a connection to the land. How can you honor the land, clean up the land? And I'm just now also, I don't know if you guys passed the part where she was also making connections with animism. Again, like what you were saying, Maribel, that's what it made me think of. We're all connected. It's all connected. Everything has a spirit. Everything's alive. And if we are to move in this world and treat everything as such, right, what does that look like? And it looks like advocating. It looks like standing up for those that can't speak. Maybe that's a plant. Maybe that's a whole community of people. And yeah, it like looks different as you keep zooming out with how the world is, right? As above, so below. But yeah, like that work really is happening from the plant to nations of people. And I think that that's something to see. Yeah. Go ahead, Missy.
Okay, thank you. Sorry about that. Can you hear me? This is so awkward. Yes, okay. Yeah, basically Maribel said it perfectly. I was gonna say, the short answer, yes. I think it is a witch's responsibility um, to advocate. Of course, we can't fight every single battle, but I think where you shine is in the work that you do in the world. So whatever you do could be a place in which you speak up about any injustice, because they're in every area, every work, whatever work you do in this world, whether it's political, healthcare, education, whatever. Um, so you can start there. And of course, as everyone was saying, where you are in the world as well. But obviously, whenever you feel that pull, because witches know more than anyone that we are all connected. And sometimes you feel that soul pull when there's something greater happening in the world. And if you feel called for those bigger causes as well, you absolutely do have a responsibility. That's spirit speaking to your spirit, and yeah, that's basically it.
Thank you, Missy. No, I appreciate everybody's input here. And kind of to like really shift the conversation from like where we're at. Looking at the second question on the screen, I was wondering what you guys were thinking around what Sarah was saying about taking our cleansing work, and instead of looking at our cleansing work as simply a process of, oh, let's remove the negative, let's get rid of like the icky gunky stuff, she challenges us to look at our cleansing practices as a transformative practice, as a practice of not just removing the negative but transforming the negative into something else. And it's making me think again of the Scorpio full moon we just had. So again, like how appropriate. But yeah, I was curious to know what you guys think about that change in perspective.
It sounds like alchemy when I hear that, right? And I work with black tourmaline a little bit, and when I see this, it is that I work with black tourmaline obsidian, and obsidian is meant to like sort of be a shield to like block out what ever is just out there in the world, but they're just going to be things that like come through. And for me, when I hear this, it gives that Black tourmaline vibe of like, all right, so the negativity is going to come in, there's going to be stuff that affects you, but like what can you learn from it, right? It's that relationship with the shadow self as well, where we have these parts of us that are good and bad, if you're going to give things labels and moral values. But there are parts of us that we don't like. And I think that's in everybody. We all carry shame and self-doubt and fear. And so it's not just about casting it off, right? It is about accepting it and learning from it. But I think I've always had that approach to cleansing in a way. It's always been an acceptance of the fact that the past happens and we feel what we feel. And I'm somebody who intellectualizes my emotions a little bit more than I should, but just taking a moment to reflect and introspect and then know that you can emerge from a negative or disappointing experience stronger and with the knowledge to go off and do better and hopefully not repeat mistakes or pains of the past. Yeah, I think it's foundational almost to cleansing rather than a shift in perspective, but that could just be me.
I thought it was so interesting, Ash, that you said that for you it's always been like that. For me, it's been completely the opposite, where it was always like, cleanse yourself off of this. Like it was very black and white. And reading that part, kind of, I put it into practice right away as soon as I read that part, like a week ago, and I was like, oh, because it is also part of my mental health journey, learning how to do that, how to not make things black and white for myself, like in terms of what I experience. So for me, it made me feel more friendly with my trauma and like have a more friendlier relationship with it and not feel so like afraid of the negativity. Like that's what I liked about it. And so hearing you, I'm like, wow, that's pretty cool. Because for me, it's like completely the opposite.
I agree, Maribel. I'm just like that too. Very used to be very black and white in my thinking, and especially when it came to cleansing, because I wasn't really ready to take in and see myself in those ways either. So it was just get rid of all of it. All of it's gotta go now. So yeah, I understand that 100%. So I really enjoyed her perspective as far as cleansing, because we do need to take a more hands-on and, like Ash was saying, alchemical approach. It's like bumping it up a notch. It feels like that's what this book was trying to convey just as a whole. So that's why I was very appreciative of the fact that she didn't really give, she gave steps, but she left so much of it open, which is probably integral to even writing a book like this anyway. You don't necessarily want to get into too many of the details, because now it seems like more like you're telling people what to do versus giving people the option to go with God, as we gonna say.
No, you're so right there. And then I wanted to read Missy's comment. Agreed, cleansing can transmute. It might be more helpful than removal. And yes, I'm really happy that that perspective like felt new to some of us and like that was helpful. And another element that I'm thinking of when I was reading her way of viewing cleansing is, how does that apply to other people? And specifically the people who we consider our enemies. And I'm not talking about like the rich billionaires who are so far away that we can't really see them. I'm talking about Facebook people. I'm talking about the people we walk past the street that you know the type. And I know in like the battles that we're all fighting, right, for liberation, it can be really easy to get caught up in, this is the enemy, this is the bad, this is the thing we're getting rid of. But if we're keeping this perspective of cleansing in mind, we can't take away the opportunity from someone to have a transformation, to have a change. And where I'm trying to go with this is, I think as a whole, like all the different movements that exist could benefit greatly from taking some of that intense anger that wants to like blame and shame others and taking that to help, when possible, educate and bring in and call in people to the conversation, provide people that opportunity to find some cleansing, however that may look like for them. And yes, I can already think of all the reasons why this can be very difficult and why it can feel impossible. And I still think it's important for us to have this in our mind so we don't become the cold-hearted people that we're trying to like avoid, right? But yeah, I'm curious. Do you guys think that if this cleansing ritual style can work on us as an individual, should it be opened up to everybody in a different way?
My immediate thought is yes, but that's not my place. You know, like I don't feel like I have the capacity to help other people, like guide them through the trauma and pain and the fear that they clearly feel that makes them so, that puts them on this other side of my beliefs, because my beliefs are all rooted in collective love and humanity and like the appreciation of life. And there are a lot of human beings that do not value that at all. It really is like capitalism and objectivity and logic. And it's like, you're a person, you're not a machine. I don't understand why you don't see that. So that's where my mind went. Like I would love to be able to do that work. I think therapy and social work and they're brave and compassionate human beings are able to do that on the daily, either in those professional roles or just as like community leaders, and they're able to like see the pain and hurt that people feel and help them move through that. But yeah, I don't know if I have that capacity right now.
I love that answer. And I see your hand, Missy. I'm gonna go to you right after. Yeah, after what you just said, Ash, it made me realize of all the different ways that help that our work looks like, right? Some people are the social workers, the therapists. Some people are out there protesting. Some people are gathering the information. Some people are, I don't know, talking to the Senate and like doing that work. And yeah, like the work looks very different and depending where you are, yeah, it can vary. Missy.
Hi, yes. Can you hear me? Sorry, I have to keep asking.
Yes, we
Okay.
can hear
All right. So this made me think of something that I've been going through for over a year, right? When you're dealing with a toxic person or your toxic ex or whatever, toxic job, banishing and cord cutting sometimes, as I've learned, just doesn't fucking cut it. And you have to transmute. There's nothing else to do. You have to figure out how to use that energy for your own benefit. And the same way Ash was talking about the difference of black tourmaline and onyx, where onyx creates a shield, but sometimes these motherfuckers break through the shield, and you need the black tourmaline to transmute the darkness into the light and to make it work for you. So I'm on that path of where, yeah, let's transmute more rather than block, banish, cut cords. Because I don't know what the fuck is going on in the world, but it doesn't seem to be cutting it anymore. That's it.
I want to jump in if y'all
Go
don't
ahead.
mind. So y'all have heard me say a million times before, I am a parent. So the first thing that I thought of when you posed that questionnaire was my son. His name's Zion. It seems like, when you think about your sphere of influence, or enlarging your territory, as the Christian folks will say, he is like my first point of contact because obviously I'm raising him. And then the other, kids, teens, or small children that are like in my family. There's not a lot, but there's enough of them. So when you think about wanting to extend that sphere of influence, my mind didn't even go towards like the adults in my life, like people like my mama's era, like my mom, my auntie, no. They're already gone. Just no. So if it can be extended, but it has to be extended to those that are willing to listen, those that are willing to hear, and those that are willing to do. And like I said, as a parent, my first thought were was kids. And you can do that in a myriad of ways that don't have to be, inherently witchy, because you don't want overly, because I live in South Carolina, everybody is overly Christian down here. Um you can do those things in more of like a stealthy type of way. I can influence the kids that are in my son's class. I can influence his cousins and them and all those things. So that automatically had me thinking about like points of entry as far as influence. And that was where I got with that. So it can be done just with people that are willing to listen, willing to hear, and willing to do. And if that's not anybody that you're around, then go with God, Crispy. As I say.
Yes, Maribel.
Something that Missy said stood out to me about how did you put it, about like transmuting the energy like with people around you, like it's not enough to just like cleanse or do things like that. And it reminded me of my last job and how toxic it was and how nothing I was doing was working. Because I was trying to like, like shift the energy and stuff like that. And then there was a moment, it wasn't a decision coming from like uh tools that I had learned already. It came from a deeper intuitive place, probably my guides, supporting me. And I just said, I have to transmute this for myself. Like I have to transmute this energy that I'm feeling in myself, like in myself. Like I need to change within myself so that I could have a different experience here. And I kid you not, the last months of my job were the most stressful I had in a really long time in that previous job. But they were the ones where I was the lightest I had ever been in that place, because I no longer like, I know I like shifted the whole thing around. Like it was just like nothing they did was able to penetrate my space anymore. It was just like, oh yeah, you guys are crazy. Yeah, and racist. Oh, okay, cool. Okay, cool. I'm out. Bye guys. I did a great job. I'm sorry you don't appreciate it. Peace. And it was a big lesson for me, because I for so long I would just like take it in, like, and just be like, I just need to cleanse myself from this. And it helped me realize that I have a completely different relationship with energy. I could have a completely different relationship with energy. And hearing what Missy said, I kind of understood better, like, what you were asking, Nori, because at first I was like, wait, how does, how do you mean? But that's the closest thing that I can relate to answer that question from my experience.
Yeah. No, I appreciate everybody's feedback. And then Ash, I had something very, very similar happen to work as well. I don't know if you wanted to share.
Yeah, sure. I'm ready. I was having to talk shit. But no, I had some demons on my job for real. It was bad. It was really bad. And it was like that's actually, I think, what really drew me to witchcraft. Like, seriously, because I was like, I had like dabbled a little bit in the past and I kind of like stopped. And then it was so toxic. It was so bad. Like I had this one person and she just like oozed anxiety. Like we were all doing this like new role and none of us really knew how to do it. And she was just very, very stressful, and like working with her just like raised my anxiety to a point as well. And like the cleansings were not working, like you said. Just like trying to like sit and meditate and do the breath work, it just wasn't working, because like she would always come back and I didn't have anything like up to really like mentally center myself. And so it's very interesting. It was a very tough time, but like that is what really forced me to like sit and get very serious with like my magic and my craft and be like, I legit can't deal with this anymore. Finding a therapist is hard as fuck. So I was like, all right, it's got to be magic. That's what I have. And it really gave me the center and the peace, and a deep appreciation for Black tourmaline, to find my grounding in this space. And I did develop a mantra. It was just like, they just have a different perspective, like I like you said, these people are crazy. I don't know what's going on, but they just have a different perspective. And then I was able to also like find the strength in myself to set up boundaries. And then she just wasn't talking to me anymore. And I had so much peace after that, because I just spoke my truth. And she's like, oh, she doesn't like me. And I'm like, nope, I do not like you. And it was a slow process. It was a painful process for sure, because it like reflected a lot of things back in me about why I was struggling to be in this space. But I mean, I wouldn't change it. Like the stakes were low, just interpersonal relationships or whatever. But my mental health was struggling, but we made it through. So I'm really I'm really happy for that.
Yes. And what I'm hearing now is I'm hearing a theme. Well, a theme that we all knew. Where us as witches, right, are having to show up in the world, be in the world because we have to. And while we're there, realizing, oh my God, capitalism sucks. Racism is so present. Oh my God, there's sexism here too. I need to protect myself. I need to figure out how to maintain myself light, how to maintain myself cleanse, how to transmute that energy, how to keep working. And now I'm thinking, if we're doing that already, right? We already have that inherent power in ourselves to like push past these difficult situations. How does having our protections in place there, right? That also means we have our protections available to us if we want to bring that energy to bigger causes. And I'm trying to like make this a little bit more concise. I feel like you guys understand what I'm saying. Like we have that protection for our personal selves. So how can we even continue to strengthen our protections to be able to fight the bigger battles, right? Whatever that looks like. Like, yes, we're dealing with sexism one-on-one because it's happening to me. What could I do to fight the sexism at my workplace, right? And taking it just one step further. Yes, oh my gosh, like I'm experiencing this racism right now at work. What could I do at my job if we have the capacity, right? Because having the capacity is such an important piece to this. Rest is very important. Please, everybody rest. But how can we then take that next step to say, hey, I'm going to fight this oppression at work, not just for myself, but for everybody who might come after me, for everybody who is coming, in future generations, future groups of people. So thinking about that, I want to ask you guys the third question on the screen. How has this book inspired you to pursue a cause? I'm curious to know, like, what, while you were reading this book, what was that one thing that just kind of kept lingering in your head? And something I want to say here is there is no such thing as a cause that is too small, and there's no such thing as a cause that is too big. I would like everybody to share. And I just wanted to say that I don't want anybody to feel like, oh my gosh, like, why don't I have something in mind? If you don't have something in mind, that's totally fine. I'm really just curious to see kind of where our minds are at when we were reading this book. Yeah, Maribel.
My mind immediately goes to the cause of Palestine. I haven't been able to do much because it's such a big thing. What I've been able to do is like stop shopping at, from like purchasing from like specific businesses. So not buying anything from Amazon, not eating McDonald's, not eating what's the other? I completely renounced Starbucks. I haven't had Starbucks in like over 6 months already. Like all these things, and like continuing to post it on my feed so that I don't forget, and so that people who go on my Instagram see it. Um but I want to do more. I don't know, what more. I'm trying to figure out what more I can start doing, because I still feel kind of false about it. Like I feel like not like active enough, and ever since that started happening, it really impacted my grief a lot, because my cousin passed away last year, and then that experience started happening, and it just made me think about death in general, and life, and the cycle of life, and all these things, and then just thinking about like senseless death, just so much, like it's crazy, like it doesn't make sense, there's nothing. And also the dynamic of like power struggles, which Sarah talks about, in terms of like the power that people who are oppressors have, and how they know, that they actually strategize. She says the enemy does strategize, and and that makes, and then it like provokes so many different issues I've had with power in my life. Like, so I'm like, I need to do something because I'm tired of people. I'm tired of shitty people winning. I don't want them to win anymore. Like, I want to like bring them down. Like, I'm like, you have to go down. I'm done. So that's where I'm at. I'm in like the planning stage. Like, what can I do? I'm part of the union at my job. I have started attending more. Like, recently I went to a conference for like inclusivity and equity for people of color. It was great. And I'm just trying to figure out, like, in all those avenues, like, how can I be more involved, connected to people of color, to things related to my roots, to like just like moving all these like crappy things out of the way. Um, so that's where I'm at. But Palestine is the big one for me because I feel like it just feeds into everything. Like, it's everything that is wrong with the fucking planet. Like, I can't like, and I've even cried about this in therapy. That's how bad I feel about it. Like, I'm pissed. So I'm trying to figure it out. That's where I'm at.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely like right there with you. Just thinking about the genocide that's going on. And I wanted to point out that those feelings of guilt, right? Of I'm not doing enough, like I'm never like, oh, I could be doing more, like what is going on? Like, am I stepping away too much? Those feelings, unfortunately, they're always kind of there. And I wanted to point out that you are doing the work. Like, you just named 5 different things that you're doing to like get yourself out there to learn more. Like, hey, I acknowledge I'm just learning about it, but I'm going to continue learning about it. And you have, even though not directly related to like the issue with Palestine, you've been doing things environmentally, right? You went to a like a paper shredding event recently. So you're doing the things. And I just wanted to point that out, right? Because it doesn't always look obvious when we start doing the work, and we don't give ourselves enough credit once we begin the path. So give yourself credit, Maribel. How what about everybody else? What issues did this book inspire you to like learn more about or just take a closer look at?
For me, again, because I'm a parent and that is my life until he is old enough to sustain himself. My son is autistic. So that is the cause because I see, experience it, and live with it every day. And I see how, particularly in the school system, how they're treated, how they're taught in essence to mask. I've been seeing how like masking is so like detrimental to them, like how it induces autistic rage, how it induces autistic burnout. So learning as much as I can about my kid and how to relate to him in the best ways possible has been that cause. So a not so great thing about myself, my son could have been diagnosed a lot sooner, and I did not want to accept that my son was autistic. So that was strike one. And that was around when he was 2. He's 7 now. And he has since been diagnosed and is on treatment, all those things. But yeah, the way that the world and society sees autism is so base level on so many ways. Even myself as a parent raising an autistic person, I have, I can only scratch the surface, but so much because I don't live in it. I'm not considered neurodivergent, at least not yet. If I get evaluated and things like that. But yeah, that's been my cause. I want to show up better as a parent. I want to show up even for the kids in his class, like just so they know that they have like a safe person to come to. Because even doing things in like the special education course, like with them, with parent involvement, not a whole lot of their parents show up for them. And there's like 14 of them in a class, and I can maybe count 5 parents that actively show up for their children, and I'm one of the 5. So yeah, that's my cause. It doesn't necessarily have anything to do with me, but it does because I'm raising an autistic person.
No, Nisi, that's so real. Like, it makes perfect sense that you're going to want to advocate for more autism research, more better like ways of treatment for autism, because it's in your family. It's literally your son experiencing that. Why wouldn't you want a world that would, right, accommodate to him in the ways that let him flourish? So no, like what you said is perfectly fine. Yeah. And I'm changing the slide, but we're still talking about the same thing. This is basically the group discussion I wanted to have, and we're starting to have it now. So same question still in the air. I want to hear what other people have to say. Missy, sorry, I just saw your hand in there, so you can go ahead. And
Yes,
thank you.
thank you. Thanks. Sorry, I'm making it so awkward, but I'll blame Mercury retrograde post shadow. So anyway, so the way the book affected me at first, I felt called out, okay, in a good way because I talked about it a little bit, but coming from a very toxic relationship and work environment, I had lost my inner rebel witch, you know, and I, because I was so, all that toxicity affects you. You start to lose yourself if you allow it to, and it definitely happens. So, that rebellious nature that I had to fight for causes or whatever, I was kind of helpless, and the world just felt like a really dark place. Um, so I'm coming out of that now, and thinking about how. So there's this word, right, going around in the spiritual community, chosen one. And at first, it rubbed me the wrong way, but the more I'm observing the world, the more I feel like yes, all of us, witches, healers, star seeds, spiritual practitioners. I really do feel that we are the chosen ones, and I really do feel like all this dark, heavy shit is actual spiritual warfare. I really do, and thinking about where we are um like with the cosmically, I'll say we are in the age of Aquarius, and Ash the cosmic witch could probably talk more about this, but from what I understand is that during this age of Aquarius there is a shift happening in humanity as a whole, and we're seeing that, right? There's so many systems that are changing, um, that haven't worked for us, that have been oppressing us, and there's a shift in the in the world as a whole, and in people, where people are becoming more elevated and spiritual. There's a huge spiritual awakening in a bigger scale, and so I do feel now like, okay, that word makes sense. Chosen ones, yes, I think we're that. And so what it made me think about is my work in the world. Coming as a healer, I was working in healthcare. We all know the shit show that happened during COVID, and how I want to do more for us people, for all the people that care, that are prioritizing their healing, self mastery, and the people that care about fellow humans and wanting to improve this and win this fucking dark war that we're in. So yeah, it's what's making me think about like having left nursing and starting my own business and doing this work as a healer, practitioner, stuff like that, like being the work. So I think that's where I'm gonna regain my power at and work with the people that are prioritizing the important shit, basically. Yeah, that's it.
Yes, Missy. And yeah, I kind of want to go ahead and share where my brain's at. So I agree with Maribel. Like the first thing on my mind now is honestly the genocide happening in Palestine. If you didn't know, like I am a student at Columbia, and being in the zone of all of this happening, I'm not gonna lie, has been an experience and a half. Um, it's been really depressing seeing the true colors of the institution come out, specifically through the emails that the president keeps sending out to us, and how they just refuse to acknowledge like what's actually happening, and this weird persistence to like, I don't know, gaslight everybody to believing a completely different story than what we're seeing in person, online, on TikTok, and all the social medias is just so beyond me. And really disempowering in so many ways. So that's like one of the things. But outside of that, like something for me that I'm always really focused on is mental health. I'm the one who is the social worker. Like that's what I'm doing. So for me, it's always been really important to like get the concepts of mental health and like allow people to learn and give them the space to learn. Like this is your well-being. This is how it can be affected both for the bad and for the good. And this is what you can do to empower yourself. And that's always been something really important to me, specifically getting it out to communities that can't have access to therapy as easily, because it is expensive and it is ridiculous to get into that process. But that's always something that I'm thinking of and what I was thinking of when reading this book.
Nuri, I'm feeling for you. I didn't know you were at Columbia. That is an experience and a time.
Yeah.
So y'all are an inspiration for sure. Like all the universities that and I was just seeing like McGill put out a request for like even the community to come and join the students that were doing an encampment up there in Canada. So it's like definitely having a shift. I will say on a cosmic level, a lot of the planets have been moving through Pisces, which is like the end of the zodiac, and then April was very much in a very Aries experience, especially around the solar eclipse. I think there were like 5 planets in Aries at that time, and even a couple of them were conjunct, and Chiron was in there as well, which is that wounded healer representation in the sky. So like the fact that sometimes I think I'm just a little nuts because I'm like I'm looking at the stars and that's what they're saying, but like here I feel like I've been hearing a lot more just out in the world. Like I'm feeling a shift. I think people are waking up. Like there's this movement also happening, you know, so as above, so below. It's very interesting to see all that sort of correlate together. Always second guessing myself, like, am I just finding coincidences or is this real? But, you know, can't focus too much on that. And I will say, even though I didn't finish this book, it really did strike me at such a poignant time because Scorpio full moon, right? But like, I don't really have a specific cause that it inspired me to follow. I think because I was radicalized super young. So I grew up in upstate New York, like 45 minutes, half an hour outside the Bronx, Rockland County. If you don't know it, it's okay. Nobody does. But it was very interesting growing up there because we have a very large like immigrant I say that like I am one. My parents are one. They're from Jamaica, but a very just like large like South American and Caribbean community that I grew up with. But we were always at odds, not always, but like as I grew up, we were increasingly and to a point detrimentally at odds with our Jewish neighbors who have a more Williamsburg aesthetic, right? Aesthetic Orthodox. And funnily enough, like the Israel-Palestine issue is something that my mom is like, I feel like I'm like the Palestinian people here, which is nuts to say, honestly. Like that is bananas. Like, do not correlate what is happening to you here in New York to like the encampments and like being like just like taken out of your homes and just having like snipers being like pointed at you while you're sleeping in your bed just casually, right? And this is before October 7th. This is just how these people were living. So I'm like, it's bananas. But I say that because like we were living in a system where the Jewish population was systematically disenfranchising the Black and Brown communities that they were existing within. They had a lot of private yeshivas that they would send their kids to, and they would take out the public funding that we could have used to get like updated textbooks and you know, busing and all of these resources. They were like taking them out because they were on the school board and putting it into the private schools and the yeshivas. And if you're like, hey, that seems kind of funky, like how can you take public school dollars and put them into like private school utilization? Girl, I don't know, but they were doing it. And it was just really wild to experience because we were sitting there and I'm like, my textbooks are old. Anytime we get any money that comes into the school, it automatically goes into like putting in security cameras, putting in security guards, you know? And I wasn't a stranger to the idea of the school to prison pipeline. So it was just right there in my face. So you don't really have an existence like that, I think, without being radicalized, without seeing, you know, and it was a soft boot on my neck at that point. It was just like roaches and toxic sludge falling down from school ceilings and just like everybody in the county thinking we were like the scary Black kids. And you tell someone you go to your school, they're like, oh God, you're not getting an education. You know, it's just like this horror show. But interestingly enough, I didn't go into like education and try to reform that. I went into health because like ultimately health affects everybody. So I got my like master's and I focus on behavioral health, and that's sort of why I'm here in DC now and not back in New York where I'd like to be, because like this is where the decision makers are, this is where the policy makers are, and it's like just a really weird experience sometimes just walking around just knowing like, you know, you're on the metro and that person's probably like a DOD contractor who's like helping them like sell bombs to go murder kids. Like it's a very surreal experience. So the advocacy that I really took away from this book was just finding the power in myself, because I'm going to be here enough. I'm really going to be about that business. And like the thing that has been propelling me forward for at least a decade has just been ending systemic racism, because that's the only way to define what my experience was in that school, right? The only reason why people were able to look and see what was happening, and they put like financial monitors, but those people weren't doing jack shit because someone was getting paid behind the back. You know what I mean? So it's just like ending systemic racism, taking on the actual this is like a Republican fear. They have said like we don't want the scary Black and brown people to get the education and then go take our positions and then like make change that benefits them. But like fuck them, that's what I'm gonna do. So that's that's what I took away from this book. Like, I don't like you. Die.
I like Missy's reaction.
No, you just said straight truth, Ash, because I mean, dare I say that's what's kind of happening right now. Here's my quick theory, and this will kind of be the conclusion of this conversation. Don't go around saying this. So here's my theory. Columbia University, in the most recent years started admitting more low income, like first generation type students. That's why I think I got in. I'm like first gen, like low income North Carolina from some middle of nowhere. Thank you. And so we all rolled up there. And then what happened, Columbia accidentally made an environment where they have a lot of low income Black and brown educated students that know that they know things, right? And because Columbia accidentally made like this breeding ground, that's how we now see what's happening with the encampments and protests right now, because it just almost like became this fertile ground for all these minds that haven't had a space to congregate are now congregating. And that's what I think is happening. So I don't know if that's true or not, but that's what I think is happening. And I just wanted to say before we move on, like this has been just such a great conversation, and it's been really nice to just hear where everybody's minds are at. And it's just a good perspective check-in for myself that there's just so many different ways that advocacy can look like, right? Like from healthcare to our children to like the greater world issues to the things that just affect us and those changes that we want to do. They all matter, and they're all so relevant. They're all such important work. So thank you all for being here and having this discussion. So that concludes our book club discussion for today. And thinking ahead for next month, we're going to be reading American Brujeria, which is by J. Allen Cross. And I'm really excited for this one. J. Allen Cross, he is a Mexican folk practitioner. And in this book, he's the one who coined the term American Brujeria. And basically, it's like a little grimoire of how I don't know, like the title says it itself, American Brujeria. That's what it is. Even if you're not Mexican, because even though I'm Hispanic, I'm not actually Mexican, I still think it's really relevant work for our Latinos, Hispanics, and anybody who identifies in this community. And I'm not going to go ahead and read that. I think you're all able to, look that over on your own. And it is also the same excerpt, I believe, in the event, if you are curious to see what it says. But yes, I highly encourage you guys to be here next month, even if you do practice brujeria. What is it? I'm personally still learning Santeria, Curanderismo. Even if you do or don't practice, come, let's talk about it. Let's learn, because more knowledge never hurt anybody. And last thing here, announcements. So Allie has her orphaned ancestry class going live on May 1st. And that is going to be happening at 10 p.m. Eastern time. And the event is also in the portal. The Coven community. And then the Cultivating Personal Strength with Cards with Maria Minnis, that was supposed to be this past Friday. It got rescheduled. Unfortunately, Maria just had a death happen in her close circle. So that's the reason it had to be rescheduled. So it's going to be now on May 3rd, same time, 9 p.m., which I believe is just next Friday. And then after that, our next book club meeting is going to be May 26th, 7 p.m., same time. And we'll be doing similar thing, different book. Blessed be everyone. Before Before we head out, I just wanted to like quickly open it up if anybody had any just last remarks or anything they wanted to say before we head out. And if not, you're more than welcome to head out.
I just wanted to say thank you again. This book club has just been so great. And it continues to help me in so many ways. And I just really like talking to everyone and listening to everyone's thoughts and feelings and perspectives. So yeah.
Thank you so much, Maribel. And book club could not be possible if you guys didn't show up, because me talking to myself is very boring. So this all works out because you guys are here. So thank you right back at you guys. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Blessed be
y'all.
everybody.
Blessed be everyone. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday, and we'll see each other in a month.
Bye.
Bye.